Good morning. Good morning. All right. First of all, let me thank you for inviting me again. Some of you seen me for the first time, but on my first invitation, it was indicated to me that I should come back. So, I'm going to keep the format in the same manner. Thanks to the governor, thanks to the conference chair, thanks to Madam President, and thanks to all of you for inviting me here this morning. We're going to talk about leadership. We're having technology problems again. It's open. Mr. Can you help us? Because I understand what technology often will do, I'm always prepared. That's why I have this in my hand. Because I know it's likely that you come and the technology fail you. So let me go ahead. While Minister Bunting spoke, and I heard somebody say minister. Minister is one of those titles that never leave you. It's like being an ambassador. Once a minister, always a minister, even if you're not actively in the position. I think we Jamaicans tend to do that. Minister Bunting used several stories which I like. One of them is he told about a junior person who things would always come up to, and when it got there, the person, he said, if you feel like you're going to faint, that is the time, then you know it's a decision that's beyond you. I had the same experience in this current post that I found myself in, where people would write their reports, and then they would send it up to me and put submitted. And I would send it back. You submitted for? Where's the recommendation? So I would just keep sending it back, keep sending it back, keep sending it back, till finally it became clear. I said, you write this, and I send it back. So what does that mean? It means that you must give me a recommendation. So I quite understand it. So we are ready to go? Okay. So you invited me here this morning, and you want to hear about leadership. When we think of leadership, a whole set of words come immediately to mind. Appreciation, respect, determination, listening, confidence, execution, review, determination, empowerment, culture, passion, humility. What I would like to do is to, from all of this here, oh, you've gone too fast. Those are great leaders. Let's look at passion. Of course, I'm not going to deal with each and every item, but let's look at passion. What is passion? What is passion in leadership? You all are leaders here at different levels. What is passion in leadership? Passion is that first step in achievement. First step. If you do not have passion for what you do, it's hardly likely that you'll be successful in what you do. Passion makes the impossible possible. You can't get to the mountaintop without failure, passion or no passion. But if you have passion for what you do, if you have failed, you will get back up on the horse. And you do know, I know a lot about horses. You'll get some of those stories later. Leadership requires a core value base, You need, and I know that as Jamaicans, we all do that. Armchair, we are the best. You get into the seat is a different picture. But to me, you need to have a core, a self-discipline. If you can't be disciplined, I don't care how brilliant you are, you cannot be a good leader. Leadership amplifies your personal flaws. And we all know it. We're not going to get into any personal things, but we see it in our leaders. Those of us at whatever level, religious leaders, Jimmy Sagat, business leaders, political leaders, let me take Trump since he's far away. Leadership amplifies your personal flaws. Leadership requires execution. Leadership, above all, requires example. But the most important one for me is leadership is listening. Listening. You can't connect with people that you supervise, that should follow you, if you do not listen. And I mean listen deeply so you can learn. You open your ear to the staff that is below you. You open your ear to competitors. You open your ear to customers. You open your ear to all of the persons and different customers, internal or external. And I learned this morning that a boyfriend is an internal customer. Did you all hear that? Yeah, man, he said that. A boyfriend is an internal customer. But so you open your ear to your boyfriend, the internal customer. I have found that when a leader lacks confidence in what he's doing, at whatever level, always remember, when I'm speaking now of leadership, it's at whatever level you are at. Because leadership, we tend to always just look at the religious and the political, especially political in Jamaica. But it is at every level. If you lack confidence in what you're doing, the people you are supervising will lack commitment. So we look at some leaders we see across the world. We think of Warren Buffett. Who is that woman right there in the middle? Anybody knows? No, not Mother Teresa. Everybody know Mother Teresa. That next woman. Anybody know that woman in the middle? Shame on me. Have you ever heard of Sheryl Sandberg? No? Mrs. Shevers, Mrs. Brissett, I'm going to give... How many people are here today? Right? No, that's too much. My pocket not that deep. How many women are here today?
No, men better. No, men. No, how many men is a better deal?
All right. I'm going with David.
How many men?
How many men? How many men are here? How many men?
About 20 men.
All right. I'm going to give 20 books.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's called Lean In, Sheryl Sandberg. She ran Google, and now she's at Facebook.
That's good negotiating skill.
That is one of my strengths. And everybody knows the family man, Barack Obama. I've selected these persons specifically because they stand tall above us all in terms of an example of leadership. But most of us are not at that level. Mr. Bunting spoke earlier about creative leadership. Now I want to go to what is the leadership that I think is essential for success. We selected some Jamaican ones too. I don't know if you agree. Who is that lady in the middle? You can't talk. I didn't even know that you think. Right? She's my chair at Double Li. Anybody ever heard of Double Li? Women's Leadership Initiative. Been around since 2004. I was a founding executive member of Double Li. She's the current chair of Double Li. And I believe she works somewhere else too with another person who spoke earlier. Yes, exactly. She's a proven woman. So we selected those. I'm sure people will disagree. But you could tell from the example given this morning earlier by Mr. Bunting that you would agree with Mr. Siaga. And I don't have to tell you about Mr. Manley because I never apologize. Because fundamentally, wherever I am, he's responsible for it. So those are some leaders we selected. Can I tell the truth? I really didn't prepare this presentation. My staff did, because I said these things every time. And the lady sitting right there, they just do everything. And they say, Miss Campbell, we just do what you always say. So that is my first piece of honesty. Leadership must be honest. Leadership must be honest. Leadership looks at transactional or transformational. Which is it? In the modern world, and when we say modern, we're talking through technology now. We're not talking between old iron and airplane and that. We're saying in the last 2 years, in the last 5 years, is it a transactional leader that we require? And some people say we've had prime ministers who have been transactional. And we've had prime ministers who have been transformational in political leadership. We've had the same thing in business leadership and also in religious leadership. But I just want to focus on the transformational side of it. You have to monitor my time too. Although I'm not a politician, I'll stay all day too. Transformational leadership is servant leadership. What does servant leadership mean? Servant leadership makes the goals clear. You roll up your sleeves, you help your people, you own the problems, you own the solutions, and you own the discussions. It doesn't have to come from you. That's transformational servant leadership. Servant, in the transactional leadership, you're getting people to think more highly of you as the leader. That's what transactional leadership is. But transformational leadership, you help people to think more highly of themselves. So my role as an executive director or CEO is to enable and empower my staff so that every step of the way, they can do anything I can do except to sign the checks. And I always tell them that if I can't not come to work and it have to stop, then I don't business there. And it should be whether it's private or public. But I have found in the public sector, and this is the example I give all the time. They pee in a circle like you're in the jungle, and you mustn't step over the pee spot. Because if you step over the pee spot, somebody going to chop off your head. So you use some emotional intelligence still because you don't cross over. But it is very imperative that if you are going to build an organizational structure that works, public or private, and I'm talking now in the last few years of public, you have to ensure that you do not pee to mark your spot. You have to open it up. Transformational leadership have no problem building other people up. They don't feel that other people's successes threaten them. The leader's attitude is like a thermostat. You come into my organization, and I can say that because when we bring in external people and they give you a feedback, then you feel good about what you have done. And the last training we did, and we do continuous training, the last training we did, the external trainer from Partners for Change came to me and she said, "You have a good organization here." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yes, they say such wonderful things about you." I said, "Really?" I said, "I'm sucking up." But they must suck up to me. They can't suck up to you. And then she says, "No." She says, "Really?" And I recorded it. She says, "It's like a thermostat. If the leader is warm and open and allows the people freedom, then they're more happy. If the leader is awful, unpleasant, then the atmosphere is insufferable." And sometimes you walk in an organization, you feel it. Even when the auditors themselves come in, they tell me. So I know that there has to be something right about doing servant leadership, empowering people, allowing them to do. Leadership must have a vision. You can't do an audit if you do not begin with the end in mind, which is what a vision is. A vision is beginning with the end in mind. You have to see way down the road what is it you would like to achieve. So don't be scared about vision. Bring it down a little bit more. If you don't have a vision, you have vague goals because they're tied together. And vague goals produces vague results. A vision is everything for a leader. Whether you're a supervisor, a chief internal auditor, just a CEO, whatever area you find yourself, you have to have a vision for the organization, for the job that you're doing, for the assignment that you have. You can seize only what you can see. You can SEIZE only what you can SEE. So you have to have a vision. It starts within, and it helps you to gather the right resources. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, and any tool will be sufficient. So you have to have a vision. And then as a good leader, you translate your vision into reality. Let me tell you a story here. I'm a big storyteller, and I think that's why you brought me here. But I decided this morning I wasn't going to give all those nice stories I did last time. Well, let's give some serious stories now. I served as the first woman CEO of a racetrack in the world. At that time, the racetrack turned over, overall, the industry was about $1 billion. It was unusual because, when you step out, it was all males over 50. And here I was, 32 years old. Dennis Layla. You walk in the room and you see Dennis Layla and Ren Gonzalez and all of those kind of people. It seems intimidating. But here is what is the great equalizer. Knowledge. If you're a leader, you have to have more knowledge than everyone else around you about what you need to know. But at the same time, you have to have the courage to know to bring the best people with the best knowledge who has more knowledge than you in the particular specializations. So the engineer, I would always say to him, I don't understand half what you said, but I know when something makes sense. I don't understand much of what technology people say. They can always think. But I know when something makes sense. And that is critical when you're in leadership. You have to know the pieces when they come together, if they're right. So one of the visions we had at Cayman Track when I was the CEO was to make it a profitable and viable place. And I was very proud of that because there were times when Minister Davis, who was the Minister of Finance then, would call me and he would say, we need $200 million. How much can you do it? I would say, yes, Minister. Yes, Minister, we'll lodge it at Spanish Town and such a time. What a difference today is. We sat down as a body and a group and we looked at how could we do this. And we went into simulcast racing, and the whole of you too young. But I remember Captain Horace Burrell calling me one Saturday and him say, girl, say you're good. And I said, what happened? He said, I was sitting down watching football, and they interrupted to bring me live racing from Cayman Park. We brought live racing into the living rooms, and therefore the income was just going up because you didn't have to leave home. And the men who liked to play a game and two didn't have to hide and come out of the house on a Saturday. We developed new sponsorships from companies that were not normally linked with racing because we approached it from the point of view of sport. It's not for gambling so you go bet your house. It is for entertainment. So we brought in RJR, Courts, and Cable and Wireless at the time, and Pepsi, all of these sponsors. So I brought in $100 million of sponsorship, which was not yet on the table. But we started out with a vision of how to do it. And it's the how-to that we are. What's important next for leadership, transformational leadership, servant leadership, is very critical in our everyday life in a personal way. Strategic time blocking, I call it. It is my most important principle. You have to master time. As it says there, we all have 24 hours. You have to have your priorities, but priorities on its own is nothing. You have to have priorities and concentration. If you don't have your priorities and concentration harnessed, you will not achieve great things. And great things is whatever is listed on your work plan. If you at the end of the day you're at 40%, then you know that you are not controlling your time properly. So you have to engage in what I like to call strategic time blocking. When I was a CEO at Cayman Astra, every Sunday I mapped my week. And I mean, I literally mapped my week. If fires came up, we will out them. But outside of the fires, I mapped my week. And that map was always in front of me. Whether it's that on Wednesday morning, on Tuesday morning, I used to like to go on a Tuesday morning, I will go to a 5 o'clock exercise. Horses exercising, that is. You know the exercising? Yes, and it starts 4:30 when you can barely see your hand. But I wouldn't go before 5 o'clock. Don't run your day by default. Millennials, you understand default. Because everything is about what default. Every minute my Android will come up. As I see recently a receipt that says hand-dried. I have it on my phone, I kid you not. The person wrote the receipt for $10,000 and it said hand-dried. On my hand-dried, it is always coming up to say my location is not, is disabled. That's default. The default position of my location is disabled. Do not run your day by default. Have a plan. You know, you're going through the day and your plan is just breakfast, lunch, and then dinner. You know, sometimes the office attendant would come to me and Junior would say, Miss Campbell, what for lunch today? I said, Junior, I don't do lunch yet. I say, I'm doing these things first. Lunch is not at this thing. But some people, and that's how you separate leadership. Some people, the day is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's default. That's default. You want to map your day. If you have this on your work plan, or you have this to achieve, then you want to map your day. At the end of the day, you must say, what is it you have achieved? Excellence, master time. And I'm going to do quickly with this one. Did you know I have been studying in the last, I would say, year, neurogenesis. I've gotten very interested in brainwave activity and how the brain works. Because my father lived to be 92. He ate a lot of pork because he was a butcher, and he killed pigs, cows, and goats, and we ate a lot of pork. I no longer eat Trenton, but we ate a lot of pork. He did too, and he lived to be 92. He could have lived longer because he had prostate issues. But you know, it always takes a woman. And my mother just heard him urinating one night and said, what Reginald a drip? It's a serious thing, and you must listen to your husband and boyfriend, the internal customers, if them dripping. And she said, you need to go to the doctor. It was a bit too late. Because men don't pay attention to those things. So he lived to be 92, and on his dying bed on Mother's Day, I was speaking to him, and I realized he was gurgling. But he knew me, and he was dying at 92. My mother is currently 94, and we were there on Mother's Day, and she started to just sing, what a friend we have in Jesus. And I had to stop to let her lead the way, because she knew all 5 verses. So, because I have a grandmother who lived to be 102. So I have a personal interest in this. And can I tell you, you see the brain? It have a negativity bias. What does that have to do with leadership? Leaders, you have to know that. The brain has a natural negativity bias. I used to say Jamaicans so negative, but I never know it was the brain. The brain has a natural, say you have a great day. Now I feel good making this presentation, and one person say, Chop, she anything. I forget about the great response of everybody else, and guess what is my focus? The one person who say, I wish she had do. I wish she had say, I wish she knew. I wish she had talked about. Instead of saying, boy, Colin said this was the best thing in here since, and he traveled all over the world. In here, Barack Obama, and in here, Rosalyn Campbell said, no, man, she good. Not true. But remember that. What you remember is the one negative comment. But it's not your fault, because the brain has a natural, and it's not me say so. Neurogenesis, the people who study the brain have said so. So, do not take for granted and dismiss your everyday achievements. Don't make your brain take you over. So one of the things I've been doing is trying to control my brain. I'm into controlling my thoughts. I can't be led down a place where everybody is saying it and I just jump in. I always step back and say, that's not how I know that person. So don't bother come tell me nothing bad about Jackie. I'm going to say to you, that's not the Jackie I know. But the natural tendency of the brain is to jump into that, because that is how it is. And I'm finally getting to understand my people who I love so much. Everywhere else in the world, I think, well, at least in the world on cable, survivor is a positive word. In Jamaica, if somebody said to you, oh, you're a survivor, you know it negative? Believe me. So you have to reprogram. That has happened to me. Someone asked me once that, you're still at PSRA? And I said, yes. And they say, oh, you're a survivor. And immediately my brain went into that thing, and I had to pull it back and just say, no, they might mean negative, but I know the positive thing of this. This is someone saying to you, you land on your feet. I remember when I left Cayman and Strack, and I was doing volunteer work for the Festival Commission. For 10 years, I chaired the Festival Queen competition. And when I got there, they weren't making any money. The first year, I broke even. The second year, I made 500,000. The third year, I made 1.2 million. And it just kept going like that. Go ask Vivian Crawford. He then wanted to give me other things. And I said, no. When people succeed at anything, you give them more work. I'm not taking it. But here is a man on the radio. He said this. Him see the woman from Cayman and Strack, and she get one big work, a festival queen, because he see me on TV. Boy, the comrades, them always take care of themselves because she land on her feet. Now, this is something I was doing for 11 years. They didn't even give me water. So I went back to the next meeting, and I said to the executive director, the CEO, I said, not only do I want water, but I want refreshment every time I come. Because I was doing this free, taking out all of my pocket, doing all of this, and next thing I hear is that I'm taken care of because I land on my feet. I'm a survivor. It's not a negative thing. You must use your emotional intelligence. It's not a negative thing. Recast your brain. Positive experiences flow through the brain, straight through, without recognition. And I want you to take that away today. You cannot be an effective leader if you don't understand that. So some of these things are my personal mantras. I do the easy things first, because that's always easy to do. Others will follow. I don't like to do it, but I have difficult conversations. And we always have to have difficult conversations. I remember one time I was firing an entire department, and my HR hand was just going like this. She couldn't sign the letters. And I said, bring them, come, Michelle. And I sat down and I signed every one of them, 30-odd people, who we had to separate from. Not because we're wicked, but because technology overtook them. And we had replaced the thing. And we did what was required during the process. So, you need discernment. Mustn't be addicted to crises if you're a leader, because that is the recipe for failure. I think that Everybody here, any see the Karate Kid movie? Karate Kid. What is the lesson from Karate Kid? If you remember Karate Kid, what is the lesson? The light powerful, you see? Eh? What is that saying? What's wax on, wax off saying? What is it saying? It is wax on, wax off. But what is that saying? You have to master simple things. You remember he rushing, wanting to go just kick out, and he said, no. Wax on, wax off. Wax on, wax off. You have to master simple things. Mastery is doing the simple things right. And you shut your eye, as my father used to say. Shut your eye and you can do it. If you can't master the simple things, it's going to be difficult for you to then take on more complex things. So mastery is part of leadership. You can't lead people if you can't master the simple things. Every leader, wherever you are, big leader, country, business, supervisor, your home, your family, you have to think like a servant. I know O'Neill was surprised that I used to run the racetrack. I saw his response. But I also used to run a betting shop for 7.5 years. And I remember once the office attendant, the lady who was sweeping thing didn't come. And man, I grabbed the broom and I started to sweep and I clean out bathroom and everything. And I remember the supervisor saying to me, her name was Deanie, she said, Miss Rose, you don't have to come here and do this again when Miss P don't come. The cleaner name is Patsy, we call her Miss P. She said, I will do it. I said, then why you never do it all the while? She said, well, since I said you will do it, I will do it. And I have never forgotten that. So never ask of your followers what you as the leader won't do. So leadership, servant leadership, means you have to think like one and act like one. Be clear with your communication. Say whatever you want. My staff know that I'm good at that. But do it with respect. Do it with respect. As long as you do it with respect, you can say the tough things and you can say whatever you want. And let go of an issue. Right? Mary know that. My staff and Mary know that. Once I finish with it, it's done. I'll say, get me a cup of coffee. Don't bother make up your face, because I'm going to drink it when you bring it come. Try don't spit in it. All right? So we are at the end now, because my time is going. So here I'm going to leave you with John Maxwell, my favorite. 5 levels of leadership. Position, permission, production, people development, and pinnacle. Position is like I am the CEO, so you follow me because I am the CEO. That's the lowest level. We really want to look at pinnacle. That's where you have influence. That is when it is beyond your immediate reach. This is where people have a difficulty because they tend to shift from humility to arrogance. Punctuality is critical. It's a leadership virtue, and it's one that I'm it's not a very good thing in Jamaica, but it's something I think I'm glad for the years I spent in North America. It's a valuable gift. Punctuality say, I value your time, you value my time. How much time I have left? I gone? All right. So I'm valuing your time, so let me finish. Leaders who are effective are leaders who are disciplined in their daily lives. They listen deeply, with fullness of presence, honoring another human being. How do you become a true leader? You don't try to be right, you try to be clear. You try not to have the last word. You no longer try to show that it was your idea. You empower other people to own the idea. You become authentic. Authentic. You really care about your audience. And the last one comes from John Wooden. Who knows John Wooden? Where are my men at? Who know John Wooden? And that, my brethren, that is it. UCLA basketball coach, the winningest coach of all time. The most powerful leadership tool you have is your own personal example. So, last story. We did an impact survey at the authority because, and we do them all the time. Every year we do it, and we listen to what the customers we serve say. And we open at 8:30. So we realized that they wanted us to open earlier. So in 2010, listen to me now, 2010, when nobody was talking about it in government, we started flexi time, and we opened at 7:15. Boy, they quarrel. Miss Campbell, she drive and she not this and that and things. So in staff meeting, and we do the thing. I would say, who are the persons who would like to be on the first shift? And we have to cover all the areas because the people have to reception, assessment, inspectorate, they have to go through a flow process. And nobody really wanted to do it, probably Coombs, who was early anyway. But can I tell you now? Everybody wants to be on the 7:15 shift. Guess why? Then gone from 3 o'clock, they can do all their business. Everybody studying, everybody can achieve. And what is important for us? Productivity gone like that. We don't have to give time off a bank. Well, we go on electronic banking anyway. But productivity is up. By the second year, when more than 2/3, everybody wanted to be on the first shift. But of course, we couldn't do that. So we created what we call critical hours. That is, having observed empirically the times we needed to cover, we had to have people there at that time. After that, you come in the afternoon, you see 5 away. But we don't need to serve the public because they're all there in the morning. So, in all of this, the first responsibility of a leader is to define the reality. The last is to say thank you. And in between, the leader is a servant. And that's Max Dupree. Thank you very much.